Alright, so I just read The Hunger Games for the first time a month ago. Yes, I know I'm very late. I just never got around to doing it, okay? I wish I had sooner. These are really good books. And of course, with any good book, there has to be a really crappy movie. I just hate book movies. Ever since I saw this one, I lost hope in any type of based on the book anything. My god, this one was terrible. So when my sister told me that the movies were really good, I decided to watch them, going in with the attitude of, meh, might be okay. But I was blown away. The reason that The Hunger Games is actually an appreciated movie series, and some people watch the movies before reading the books, which is... Why would anyone torture themselves in that way? Is because they're actually good movies, and without realizing it, Suzanne Collins created a book series that would make the perfect movie. Here is why. Hello there, I'm the Syrup Snake, and yes, I took a break, and yes, it was for no reason at all, but I don't think anyone cares because I have 8 subscribers. Which reminds me, please subscribe so we can defeat the evil Exalt and humiliate him for his lack of an upload schedule. I shouldn't be talking. Okay, so the Hunger Games movie was pretty great, and I went in thinking that it wouldn't be because there's so much internal thought and so much of the book is taken up by Katniss's thinking. So how would a movie make up for that? First, we need to think about what makes a good book movie and why certain book movies are more appreciated than others. I think I've come up with 3 main factors that determine their worth. The most obvious one is plot accuracy. If you want a movie to be based on a book, you need to have a plot line that lines up with that of the book. This can be something as simple as Percy Jackson getting riptide right before entering Camp Half-Blood rather than getting it before his quest, which was supposed to happen. Or it can be something bigger, like Persephone being in the underworld despite the fact that it's the middle of summer. What the fork is the Percy Jackson movie? If you don't have good plot accuracy, the fans will be upset that the characters and general events were stolen to create some crappy Chinese knockoff. Now that's a pretty easy one to nail, so let's move on to our next category, appearance accuracy. Appearance accuracy is the reader's imagination of the situation described in the book versus what everything looks like in the movie. This can be a pretty big problem because different readers have different imaginations in their heads. Like, for example, I imagined Caesar Flickerman to be in the right chair, but he was in the left. 1 out of 10, this movie sucks. There's simple ways to get around this, like, well, actually reading the book and the author's descriptions, because Annabeth was repeatedly called blonde. Sorry, I'm calm now. Everything is alright. As I was saying, there are simple ways to get around this, like, well, reading the book, of course, but also what the Hunger Games did is getting the author to work on the movie. When the Percy Jackson movie was being made, Rick Riordan admitted that he didn't know anything more than the general public did, but even though the new Hunger Games prequel hasn't been released yet, Suzanne Collins has begun working with the studio for the movie. It's impossible to fail because the one who created these characters is bringing them to life in cinema format. The last category I've come up with is necessary modifications. There are obviously things that can't be done when converting a book to a movie, and thus there need to be some changes. Of course, this can really easily fail. You might make a necessary change that is vastly different from what happens in the book, and making changes between formats is 100% okay and completely necessary sometimes, but you can't take it too far. That's what fans got mad about in the Percy Jackson movie. The changes they made were completely unnecessary and just plain stupid in most cases. Another part of this category is cutting out unimportant events, such as small conversations, preparation, insignificant events, and it can vary based on the book, but there are just some parts that don't really need to be in the movie, and would slow it down and make it too long. I feel like the Harry Potter movies are a good example, because those movies cut a lot of scenes or just put them into montages. There were some parts that I was like, wait, you forgot about this or that, or wait, what about this important event that's supposed to happen in the middle of that montage? But most of the time, the Harry Potter movies did a really good job at a writing skill we humans call summary. So after that, you might be asking, well, The Hunger Games meets all of those requirements, but so do a lot of other movies, so what makes it so special? Well, TLDR, Suzanne Collins wrote The Hunger Games in a writing format and style that, with the right brains behind the movie, and her own brain behind the movie, would be translated into a perfect book movie. In terms of plot accuracy, it's perfect. There's basically nothing that's been cut out, except for the ending, which was sort of put into a montage, blur events type sort of thing. You know what I mean. The one specific example I can take from the first movie is at the very end of the games. The whole thing with the Mutts and Cato, you know what I mean. In the book, Cato had some sort of special armor, and the scene dragged on a lot longer. This would be a modification problem, but I feel like this is a really good example of a necessary modification. Remember, the scene dragged on so long because we were inside Katniss's head, hearing her thoughts, commentating on the games, and how the scene of Cato being slowly, brutally murdered would give the games more watch time. It's necessary to cut out some of this because we can't get inside Katniss's head. This is one of the many problems with book movies, but I think other than this scenario, the people behind the movie had a strategy that worked all too well. Let's look at the scene with the Tracker Jackers. In the book, Katniss explains with her thoughts that the Tracker Jackers were a weapon used against the rebels before the Dark Days. In the movie, Caesar Flickerman, well, just look at the scene.
For those of you who don't know, Tracker Jackers are genetically engineered wasps whose venom causes searing pain, powerful hallucinations and, in extreme cases, death.
He explains everything to the audience, the people of Panem. What was done so well with this movie is that they turned the disadvantage of a first-person POV book and swapped that for the advantage of a third-person movie. It's perfect. There are so many other examples of this as well. The opening of the movie explains the revolution that led to the games. Flashbacks show Katniss' memories that she explained. The scene with Seneca Crane and President Snow outlines the strategy that Haymitch was executing. It works so well, but the biggest reason that this movie was destined to be made is the reason that I thought it would be so terrible. So much of the book is taken up by Katniss' thinking. When the directors are putting together the movie alternatives that I just explained, the clips automatically shorten themselves, so you don't need to cut out any action because you've already cut the internal thought. That, coupled with the extremely intellectual decisions of the people working on this movie, you have yourself a perfect book movie. Besides the goddamn chair thing, that ruins everything. Okay, so I've analyzed the first movie, but the sequels, well, I don't actually think those were perfect. They were great, don't get me wrong, but they weren't as well done as the first. Inaccuracies in the second movie, like this whole District 12 takeover thing being really sudden rather than gradual, which does make sense, I guess, because they need to shorten the movie, but... Hey, wait a sec. The reason why this one wasn't as good is because there's much more action. The tour launches straight into the whole Rising Rebellion bit, and that launches straight into the third quarter quell, and there's less background to set up. The books are the same size, but there's more required exposition and background knowledge in the first. The things people said about Mockingjay being slow aren't really correct. I don't agree with them, I should say. By that book, the action is really kicked off, and the only internal thought we really get to see is Katniss slowly going insane, which doesn't last too long. They split it up into 2 movies because it was the only choice they had. The books are the same size, roughly, but translated into movies, they can't be. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my big nerd rant, and if you like my videos, consider subscribing for more. I'll try to keep my consistent every other week upload schedule from here. If you have any questions or want to argue with me about this stuff, and the comment section is the great place to do so. There's really nothing going on there at the moment. That's all for now, and I'll see you around. Thank you for watching.